Chapter 7, Mishnah 8. Property that is hekdesh, consecrated to the temple treasury, is not obligated in gifts to the poor. The Mishnah discusses the law when a person consecrates his vineyard to the temple while the grapes are growing. We now turn to the words of the Mishnah. If someone consecrates his vineyard to the temple treasury before the olelos can be identified, that is, when the clusters of grapes are too small to tell which ones will develop properly and which ones will remain underdeveloped, the olelos does not belong to the poor. By the time they become olelos, the vineyard belongs to hekdesh, and property of hekdesh is exempt from the law of olelos. However, if a person consecrates his vineyard after the olelos can already be identified, that is, after the grapes have developed enough to tell which are olelos and which are not, the olelos belong to the poor. As soon as it is clear which clusters are olelos, those clusters belong to the poor. Since the owner does not own them, he cannot give them to hekdesh, and they remain property of the poor. Another opinion. Though Rabbi Yossi says, if the vineyard was consecrated after the olelos were recognizable, although the poor may take the olelos, they must give hekdesh, the value of the growth from the time that they were consecrated until the time that they were collected. Although the olelos belong to the poor, they draw nourishment from the vines and soil that now belong to hekdesh, and the poor must pay hekdesh for this. In addition to the laws of peret and olelos, the law of shchicha also applies to a vineyard. Thus, grapes that are forgotten in the vineyard must be left for the poor. The Mishnah discusses when forgotten grapes become shchicha in different types of vineyards. What is shchicha in the case of trellised vines, i.e. vines spread across wooden frames? That is, at what point is a grape considered to be forgotten in such a vineyard? Whenever the harvester forgets a grape and moves far enough that he can no longer stretch out his hand and take it. However, as long as he can still reach the forgotten grape, it is not considered forgotten. Since these vines are all intertwined, the farmer is not considered to have finished with the vine until he has moved so far that he cannot reach it. And with regards to vines spread out on the ground, a forgotten grape is shchicha as soon as the farmer passes it, even if he is still close enough to stretch out his hand and reach it. Here, each vine is distinct and separate. Once the harvester moves past a vine, he has finished with it, and it is forgotten, and its forgotten fruit is shchicha.